Welcome back, friends. In our last video, part 3, we finished up on putting our 6 pieces of hat together, with our front, middle, and back, and then on the rear side, same thing. The fronts are together and the backs are together. Wrong sides out. All of our seams are folded toward the back here on either side. Here's the back, so these seams fold this way. We did our perimeter stitch. We did our secondary double stitch on the top of the crown for a little extra support there. And now you see we have some excess fabric here in some places on both sides of our hat, both pieces. The cherry there and then the frog, both pieces are identical, and that's important because they're going to fit together to make this one hat. So I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to remove some of this excess here because it'll just bunch up in the top of the hat, and that will not be good for our customer. So we want to leave 3/8 of excess fabric out here. That's what we have down here, like we talked about in our last video. So we're good up into about right here. We start getting pretty wide. We start getting toward closer to a 1/2 inch. So we're going to trim that up to where I have only about 3/8 of an inch of excess fabric here on this outside of this stitch line. There we go. Now I've got a 3/8, approximate 3/8 excess fabric all the way around on the frog. Exact same scenario here with the cherry, our other side. This excess does us no good. It can cause problems in the laundry. It'll want to gather up and be uncomfortable. So there we go. Now we have that same 3/8 seam allowance, what we'll call it. Okay? So there's that. Let's talk about our bill that we made already in a previous portion. We got a nice decorative stitch line out here on the perimeter, and then I came through with one straight stitch for a little support there in the near the center. And this thing is, you can see it's holding its shape. We put our stiffener in here, our stabilizer. That's sewn in. So we've got frogs on one side and cherries on the other. You can see that in part 1 and 2 and 3 of how we got to this point. So I hope you'll go look at those if you haven't already. Okay, now I want to start with the with the frog here, and our next step moving forward is to create a cuff along this bottom, or this blunt side, this butt side. Well, this will actually sit around the forehead and the ears, and this is the top of the head here. So what we'll have is something like this to be sewn, both pieces. And I always like to start with the front. So as we look at it here, here's our front, middle and back. I'll grab this front right here, and I'll just open her up, and I want to fold all of these seams to the right. That's just how I do it. They all need to flow in one direction, in my opinion, for getting the size right on my hats. And you can do it any way you see fit, but this is how I do it. I fold that seam to the right, and I'll make my cuff. Now when I'm going through here and making this cuff, I like it to be 3/4 of an inch wide. Okay, that's my goal, is 3/4 of an inch. So we've got it started. Our seams are folding to the right, and we're just going to go around the perimeter, the circumference, and get us a crease or a cuff started. All of our seams folding the same direction. And here we are back to the front. And a lot of times what I like to do is in the back over here is I'll get my 3/4, that's very close, and I'll put me a pin in the back for me to look at and recognize that that is the back of my hat. Okay, so I want that cuff to be pretty uniform rolling around there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you wouldn't want it out of whack. You want it about 3/4 of an inch wide. And we'll go around a couple times and we'll stretch that seam right there a little bit. We won't try to pull it apart, but we'll get the stretch out of it. We'll get the give out of it. Each one. That once again will affect our final size. And once again here we're making a 7 1/2, 7 5/8 size of a hat. Okay, so that looks good. Our cuff is uniform. All our seams are folded in the same direction down here. And we got a pin to let us know that this is the back portion of the hat. Alright. Now I want to talk about a stiffener or a stabilizer or a filler. This will, the same material that we used in our bill to stiffen it up and give it some shape. Now we're gonna also use a piece of this around where the hat will lay around the head to keep that part in shape. And for my preference is to have a piece that's very thin. This is pretty flexible stuff here. It's 1 inch wide, and I need a piece 25 inches long. This piece is not 25 inches. The sheet of stiffener that I bought was only so wide, so I'm having to have me a second piece here, and we'll join the two together to to make it as long as we need. No problem. It would be nice to have one length of 25 inches with no seam or no joint in there, but it's going to be okay. So now that we know where our back is, because we got a pin in there, the section where these two will meet, I want it to be in the back. I don't want it to be in the front. I want it as hidden as it can be. So I'm going to put it toward the back. And I'm going to start here and just put it in place. And you'll notice that I'm not holding the edge of the stiffener down even with the edge of the fabric here. I'm pulling it up into the hat about a 1/16 of an inch, just a small little bit right there to hide it. And you'll see that play out here in shortly. So I'm going to put me a pin in here as I start. And that looks good. Now I'll just work my way around, pinning the stiffener onto my perimeter, keeping that little bit of space there to where the stiffener won't show when these two sides of the hat are sewn together. Keep everything pulled left and right pretty firm as we do this. I don't want any slack difference between the fabric and the stiffener. I'm pulling it pretty tight here, left and right, as I go. And if you do have a wrinkle or some slack somewhere, just take it off and start over. Get it right. Strive for perfection and accept non-perfection, but you get as close as you can. So there's that length of stiffener pinned in place. Okay. Now we got a section that we have to get another piece, because this sheet that we bought was not long enough. So I'll join those ends there. I'll butt them together, and we'll continue with our second piece of stiffener. It's the same width, 1 inch. And we're going to finish our perimeter because we want it all the way around. And we can see the end of this original one where we started here. So I'm going to get me a pin. I'm going to use this pin that's already there and pin it right there, close to that where the first piece is. Then I'm just going to make a cut with my scissors right here on this piece of stabilizer, as to where they're not overlapping, but there's no space in between them. Pretty common sense stuff there. And that'll work just fine. They're not overlapped, and there's by the time we sew this, there'll be no space in between the two pieces. So now we got our stiffener all the way around our circumference. And it's going to be hidden because it'll be up inside the two pieces. You'll see. So there's that. Now we're going to move to think about our bill here. I need to adjust my camera, and I will be right back. Alrighty, now we got our stiffener in place. Let's turn this right side out. How pretty is that? Starting to look like a hat now. Okay, I came through and I put me an odd colored pin right here to identify that this is the back. And these two pieces that my thumbs are laying on is the back portion. That's where the bill's going to go. Our bill is going to sit in here like this. You see my seam right here. We want that to be the center of the bill. And then for me, all that's done with eyeball and practice. I want to make sure that this open edge right here, this unprotected edge, is pretty far down here inside the hat. I don't want that fragile edge to be sitting out here close. I want it to be down in there a half an inch. I don't want it up top here. I want it down in there. And you have to mess around with it and move some stuff around or try to get it lined up how you want it here. Twist it and pull it and turn it. But again, we got our seam here, which is the center of the rear of our hat. I got a seam out here and I got a seam out here. So we're going to watch those as far as being centered left and right. So our bill is tucked down in there quite nice, how we want it. Now need to make sure it's uniform, and the distance between this seam and the edge of the brim and this seam and the edge of the brim are approximately the same. Now you can mark it out and be sure, but as you look at it and move it around, does it look uniform? It does to me there. I've got 2 inches or more of this bill slid down inside of this portion of the hat. I hope that makes sense there. So this is a little difficult to get this this bill put into position, but once you're comfortable with it, lay it down flat and try not to move anything around, and you hold it down with your palm there like we do, and put a pin out here. Keep this in place. Then I'll stretch across there, pressing, a little pull, keeping everything pulled firm, not out of whack but firm. And I'll pinch that, and I'll use that pin that's already there, and I'll catch this, pinning the bill to our hat. And we're going to get one in the middle here. Try to keep that pulled firm. Alrighty, now our bill is attached to the hat, and we'll look at it and see if we like it. Does it look uniform? Yes. Our fragile seam, our unfinished edges here are tucked pretty far down into the hat. The ends of the bill are tucked way down, so that's good. And we're going to go with that. Now, I'm going to move the frog portion to the side right now, and let's work on our other side of our hat, our cherries. Okay, here's our front, middle, and back. So once again, we always start with the front. All of our seams that we made will fold to the right, and I want to create that 3/4 inch cuff once again, all the way around, just like we did before, tugging on those seams to get the stretch or the give, the slack out of them. As we go around, let's give it a little tug there to maximize, or to make sure we stay focused on our size of our hat. That's what we did with the frogs. That's what we're going to do with the cherries. Pull that slack out of those seams all the way around. Now let's put us a odd colored pin in our back here. Let's see which one's the back. Here's our back, because it's larger. This piece is larger. And let's see if we got 3/4 here. And we do. So here's our odd colored pin we're going to put right here, letting us know this is the back. Our bill will be here. And let's go around, keeping that 3/4 inch cuff, pin it in place. You may want it for your customers. You may want a 1 inch cuff, or even less, maybe a 1/2 inch cuff. You tweak it and get it how you like. You can adjust your pattern size and make all different shapes and kinds of fits. Alright, so that's pinned up. Now we're not going to turn the cherry right side out. We're going to leave it just like it is. Once again, I need to make an adjustment to my equipment, and I'll be right back.